Gamer Braves.
Solving crimes, getting into sick kung fu fights, just another ordinary day in the life of a high school robotics club person? God, I love this series. What's up, lads? This is Juan Emerald from Gamer Braves, and today we're going to be taking a look at Lost Judgment, the sequel to the spin-off of the Yakuza series Judgment, also not really quite a spin-off because Yakuza is now a JRPG. Yeah, that happened. You play as the detective Yagami, the same protagonist as you did in the original Judgment. This time, you're set against the scenic backdrop of Yokohama for what is completely stored. I'm just kidding, it's because Yakuza 7 was in Yokohama. Seriously, it's an open secret that the game shares assets with its Yakuza counterpart. And it's all the better for it. If you were already sold on the original Judgment, there's very little convincing I need to do to you to get you to play Lost Judgment. Everything you love is there, just with a little bit more to keep you playing. At its core, it feels like more of the same, but better. Nothing that was great from the original Judgment was really cut for Lost Judgment. Instead, it feels more like the developer said, what did people like about the original Judgment? And then added new things to enhance that. The best example for this would of course be the fighting stances. Now, Judgment inherits the same fighting style that the original Yakuza game had, where you switch between stances. And just like that, they've added new stances to the game, letting Yagami fight in an all-new way, such as with the new Snake stance. They've been making beat-em-up games for years now. The formula doesn't need all that much changing, so I'm glad that they kept what works. Ryuga Gotoku Studio knows what they're doing. Now, that's not to say that they didn't change the combat entirely though. There are some changes, although it comes more in the form of where you're fighting instead of how you fight. You'll be fighting in the streets of Yokohama, and just like its Yakuza 7 counterpart, Yokohama is much less claustrophobic than Kamurocho in the original Yakuza game. As a result, enemies have way more room to move around, as do you, as you can now dodge without worrying about hitting a wall. However, all this free space means nothing if you're a street thug, because Yagami is still gonna come to you and beat the tar out of you with a heat move. Of course, there's more to this than just beating up random street thugs. Yokohama looks great and serves what I think is the main function of the Yakuza games, which is as therapy for those of us who cannot go to Japan in these trying times. Seriously, Ijincho looks gorgeous, and it's a lot of fun to just walk around the streets just like it was in Yakuza 7. There's a lot of buildings with a lot of different ways to interact with them, such as batting cages, darts, and a Sonic fighting game that hasn't been seen in years. In fact, for the longest time, the original Judgment was one of the only ways to play Virtua Fighter 5. Now that title has been passed to this Sonic game with the re-release of Virtua Fighter 5. So here's hoping that means one day we'll see a Sonic fighting game at EVO. Some people may wonder why you put so much emphasis on minigames when you have a pretty good narrative that the Judgment series has. Sure, the crime drama is really good, like it's really well written, but the ability to just take it slow and, walk into an arcade or go to a convenience store, it's an underrepresented thing in video games, and it's really fun to do in Lost Judgment. Of course, don't spend all your time doing it. Like I said, it's a really good story. Speaking of which, I don't think I ever introduced the fact that this game's a crime drama. But yes, it is a crime drama, and a lot of the core gameplay is built around engaging with the crime drama. One of these is the improved way to chase down targets via, chase sections in the story. These were kind of terrible in the original Judgment, but have been fixed in Lost Judgment, and actually feel kind of fun to do. You also have the return of the investigation mode, where you look around for evidence as well as taking photos, in the name of justice. I also really like the addition of parkour. Typically, I'm not a fan of movement-based puzzles. The idea of, oh, you slipped and fell, do this whole level over again is kind of, just poor taste. However, in Lost Judgment, you never really fail per se, you just kind of have to start again. You don't go to a game over screen. There's also the sneaking sections, where you, as Yagami, will have to sneak around and convince me you're not a super ninja as you throw smoke bombs to escape detection by enemies. I'll be real with you, I am not a fan of this. I particularly don't like stealth segments, but I do feel they're important because you're a detective. You can't really be using a crane kick as admissible evidence in court. Now, I don't want to spoil the story, of course. It is really good. It goes in a lot of crime and has some really gorgeous stuff that I can't show because of the YouTube content guidelines. Just know that the engine they use for this game is really good, and Ryuga Gotoku knows how to use it well, just like they did in Yakuza 7. So there's some really memorable moments from this game that I'm sure once it's more okay to talk about spoilers, lots of people will be talking about. However, that is all secondary to the main appeal, which is the side content. Oh yeah. There are full-on quest lines for you to do that just feel good. My favorite of these is the school stories. This one high school area is so chock full of content, you can't convince me that this wasn't supposed to be its own spin-off game before it just got added to the main project for Lost Judgment. Yagami has to infiltrate a high school in order to investigate one of his cases. And to do this, he has to befriend all the clubs in the school, gaining their trust to get more information on the culprit. Being someone who's been out of school for more than a decade, it feels weird that I'd still be here gaining the approval of people of those in high school. But it's actually pretty fun. There's a lot of great mini-games you can do, such as the robotics battle mini-game, as we mentioned before. It's just silly and weird, and you can lose so much time just hanging out here that you forget that there's a greater crime mystery to solve and you can't just be hanging out in the school. It also provides one of my favorite pieces of therapy where you beat the tar out of some high schoolers. Seriously, some delinquents think they can kick your butt and they don't realize that Yagami has no problems beating a minor. Of course, the best part of this is also the worst part. School stories are great, but they are incredibly time consuming. You have to unlock the clubs one by one, and it's never really clear how you unlock them. You can spend hours upon hours seeking the approval of these children and still never unlock the girls' bar, which is a weird thing to do when you consider that they're high school students. Why would they have a girls' bar? Who knows? All in all, it's hard to not recommend Lost Judgment if you have any kind of love for this genre. Ryuga Gotoku has weirdly carved their own niche with an entire genre of just games that they made, from the original Shenmue to the Yakuza series to now Judgment and Lost Judgment. And if you love any of them, you're going to like Lost Judgment. There's just so much to do in this game, from its great story to its side activities to playing the Sonic fighting game against each other. That being said, the series is weird and lovely, but also prone to a lot of downtime as you just, wander the streets of Yokohama. That's not entirely the game's fault. Like, it wants you to play it this way. It wants you to enjoy it like a stroll, not a sprint. So the only people I wouldn't recommend this to is the kind of person who went in expecting something like Uncharted, where it's a straight story that you're supposed to run through. It's just not that kind of game. You're supposed to enjoy being in the moment and just play the game. Lost Judgment gets an 8 out of 10 from us. It's available on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. I recommend getting it on the next-gen version just because the loading screens are way shorter and that makes the gameplay that much more fun. Is Lost Judgment your favorite of the Ryuga Gotoku series games? Or do you want to just get back into another JRPG with Yakuza 7? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Juan Emerald from Game Braves. Take care, guys. Hey there! Thank you so much for watching our videos. Don't forget to give us a subscribe if you'd like to see more, and like so we know what kind of content you want to see. Got suggestions for new content? Let us know in the comments below too. Thank you so much again for watching. Take care, dudes.